Hi everyone, this is Kate Warnock coming to you from the Guidewell UST Global Innovation Center in Lake Nona. I'm delighted to have a futurist with us here. His name is Jim Stikeleather. Jim, welcome to the interview.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Well, so Jim, you are a known futurist, but you're also the former Chief Innovation Officer at Dell. You just left that position recently, so I have to start with a question. Can you predict for us, what does the future of the cancer patient experience look like?
Well, I'll shy from the word prediction. There's a very famous quote by Niels Bohr that says, "Prediction is difficult, especially about the future." So what I'll share with you is some perspectives and potential future scenarios, what might happen. I wouldn't necessarily call it prediction.
All right.
I think there's a couple of things that you have to think about, especially relative to cancer, but medicine in general. And they're really driven by changes that are taking place within technology. I think the starting point is a rethink of the whole concept of the electronic medical record. There's a lot of work that's going on in the space of blockchain, which is the underlying technology for a lot of the cryptocurrencies. Most people have heard of Bitcoin, but there are several others. Well, with that technology, you truly can implement an electronic medical record that's totally controlled by the patient, and that everybody can contribute to with a valid record associated with it. So a lot of the problems you have today of integrating electronic medical records, of going into one doctor and filling out a form and going into another doctor and filling out a form, and even going back to that doctor another day and filling out the form, all of a sudden that's going to revert back to the patient. And that will have a radical impact on the experience the patient has. Because if you talk to them, they're really frustrated by electronic medical records.
We've certainly heard about it today.
The other piece that's associated with it is, you may have heard of the Internet of Things. And what the Internet of Things talks about is the fact that everything in our life will be instrumented, including ourselves. And what that means is that now the medical record is going to be constantly updated in real time based upon where you are, what you're doing, who's around you. So you won't have the infamous shift change where the two nurses come in and spend all their time looking at the screen and not noticing that the patient has died when nobody was looking. Those two, the combination of blockchain and electronic medical records, the introduction of integration with what's going on with the Internet of Things, directly collecting the information not only from the equipment in the hospital, but just the environment that the patient is in, the fact that their homes can be instrumented, that you can keep track. Are they taking their medications? Did anybody get up out of bed? Have they had a recent bowel movement? All of that suddenly is part of the electronic medical record. So that will radically change the patient's experience. On top of that, there's more information, which with more information you can do more analysis, so we can refine the treatment much more precisely to that individual, not only based upon the genome and their genetics, but also based upon how they live their lives, where they live, their behavior and everything else. So now you have all of this better information to sit there. Well, what that means is we will begin to see a disruption of the business model of medical care. Because suddenly with that information available in the way it is, you don't necessarily have to be at the hospital to perform the treatments. If I've got Internet of Things and I've instrumented the individuals, then suddenly telemedicine suddenly becomes very realistic. It's no longer necessary for me to necessarily go to the hospital. So you now begin to have more of almost the old style of medical delivery, because any particular physician has access to all of the information and all of the instrumentation of the patient. So it begins to change the whole nature of healthcare. And for once, we have a true patient-centric delivery model. One of the things that I'm working on, I'm currently working on my doctorate, and what I am studying is what are new models of business going to look like. It's based upon the idea that society is made up of all of these independent systems. The economy is one, the political system is one, the legal system is one, healthcare is one, art is one, religion is one. And what we have happening today in the economy is we have focused on optimizing it to the distraction of all the others. There's something within general systems theory called the sub-optimization principle. Any system is made up of multiple subsystems. And what happens is the more you optimize the subsystems, you sub-optimize the overall system. Well, the same thing is happening in healthcare. The system is the patient. The hospitals, the providers, the payers, the government regulators, all of those are subsystems to support the system. But what's happening within the industry today? Each of those subsystems are being optimized to be as efficient as they possibly can, which means we're sub-optimizing delivery to the patient. When we get into this new environment, this new level of instrumentation, the new technologies, then suddenly we can shift to focusing on let the patient drive the subsystems, and it will be a radically different delivery model, I suspect.
So help give us a timeline to all of these scenarios that just sound so much like what we really want to see in any, not just cancer, patient experience. Are we 5 years out, 10 years out? How soon?
Well, I always tell everybody, when I talk about, and we call them foresights, whenever I talk about my foresights, I said I am 100% sure I'm correct. Just don't ask me what timeline to do it in. I can say that a lot of the initial technology is already in place and you're beginning to see it. I've worked with some insurance companies around instrumenting patients' homes, doing simple things like enabling the caretakers to be able to check on them. Right. You're starting to see some introduction of telemedicine in secondary care facilities so that you don't have to do a readmit. If something goes wrong, you can actually deal with it from it. So you're seeing the bits and pieces there. The problem is all of these other subsystems, the payers and the providers, are entrenched, and this is a disruptive model. Right. And the thing about disruptions is they're slow, and then they happen. If I was betting, I would bet that we are looking at the first vestiges of this type of model within 5 years, and it being fairly common within 15.
Okay. Well, I'm hopeful for that timeline because the scenarios that you described just sound pretty ideal to me. So,
we have to get to the point realizing, I jokingly, in this paper I'm working on, I actually say we really don't have a healthcare, we have a disease management system.
Absolutely.
And if we're going to truly move it to a healthcare system, then the patient absolutely has to be the system that we're looking at, and all these other things are supporting subsystems to it.
Right. All right. Well, we have another question for
Sure.
you, Jim. Given your background, your expertise, you once defined parameters for what qualifies as innovation. What parameters will define innovation in the cancer experience?
That's one of those great questions that you can talk for hours on, so I'll try and net it down a little bit.
All right.
When I talk about innovation, the first thing I say, you have to understand that there are different types of innovation. Most people think of innovation as new products, the latest and greatest, and the new shiny object. It turns out if you study innovation, that's actually some of the least valuable innovation. There's a Frost and Sullivan study that showed that the single most valuable innovation is a new business model innovation, doing something in a way differently than it's ever been done before. We classically talk about, everybody knows what an iPod was, and people think iPod was really innovative. Well, no, not really. It was just the next generation MP3 player. Mm. However, Apple totally disrupted the media industry. Right. How did they do it? With a new business model called iTunes. And if it wasn't for iTunes, you wouldn't have iPhones, because it really became the basis for a new way of distributing not only media, but services and everything else. So we talk about innovation around the business model. We talk about innovations around products and services. We also talk about innovations around organizational models and operating models. So when I start thinking about innovation in healthcare and applying to cancer, one, I think we're going to see new business models, much more outcome-based, much more idealized and fit to an individual. But I think we're going to see different operating models associated with that too. That maybe instead of the physician having the lead of discussing what treatments, when, where, and how, that it will basically be somebody. I'll give you an example. In the sessions today, numerous people talked about their cancer treatment being a journey, okay? And it's the journey is what was important. Well, if you were going to take a journey today, you don't necessarily get on and get on Expedia and find a hotel and find. You might want to start with a travel agent, somebody who understands where you want to go, right, and what you want to see and what you're interested in and what you can afford and what you can tolerate. I remember one of my first trips to India, I had somebody who was traveling with me who just absolutely insisted that you had to travel like a native. And that lasted through our first second-class train ride. So I envision that we're going to see new models of things like travel agents for your cancer treatment. That would be a radically different business model as well as a different operating model associated with it. So that's one area where I think we'll see a lot of disruptive change taking place.
It's fascinating. Well, I really could understand how we could talk for hours about all of your answers. So much more I would love to talk to you about, but I'm just so glad that you're part of the conversation here. Day one and hopefully day two of Greater Than Cancer, you obviously have so much to share.
Well, I've enjoyed it, and I have to honestly say I've been learning a lot.
Oh, that's terrific. Well, I know that's what GuideWell hopes to do as well, is to learn and take back what we get from the experts like yourself. So, Jim, thank you so much for your time. My name is Kate Warnock. Thank you so much for watching.